This is Black Scott.
This is Love Jade.
And we are He Said, She Said, a podcast where we unpack current and controversial topics concerning
men, women, and the roller coaster that is our relationships with one another.
Look out for new episodes dropping every Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific.
Tune in wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I've already been telling people I've been going through this depression. The reason why is because I haven't found a girl yet that I actually, not that I actually like, but I like strongly.
So you mean depression as in opposed to elevation? Or you mean...
I mean depression in a comical sense, not actual.
Oh, okay. I was like...
Semi-actual.
It's like, why were you getting real with
exactly.
The listeners out here?
Really deep and intimate now. Yeah. Still are.
No, we still are. We're still doing all our business. So...
But yeah, it's like, man, I have not come across what I actually like strongly like in not a long time, in like a while.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, like it's different. You're just kind of meh.
So you mean like right now? Are you saying like since you've been dating, or are you saying like now that you're not seeing that person you're talking to anymore?
Since after the breakup.
The relationship breakup.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was like trying to not tell your business, but trying to get the answers.
Right. Trying to still investigate. I feel like it's like this. It's like the what's it called? Goldilocks and the Bears. Uh-huh. And she tries all of the porridges and all the beds.
Right.
So I'm trying to porridge too hot.
Too cold.
Too cold. The bed's too rough, too firm, too hard. This one's too soft. I'm trying to find the just right spot so I can go ahead and, lay up in the bed with the porridge.
Have you ever played? Sorry, this is so off topic.
What?
Have you ever actually played this game with people, hot and cold, where they're looking for something and it's like hot, cold, cold?
That was the most frustrating game.
It's the most frustrating game.
And I feel like God right now is playing with me on this hot and cold game of life.
Oh my God. It's the most frustrating thing. And
right there.
Yes, it's irritating because like sometimes you find somebody that like you think is cool. Just bring it back around to what you were talking about.
Wrapping it back in.
Yeah, it's you find somebody you think is cool and it's like, oh, not quite though. Like they were cool, but not coolest.
Right. There's just one non-negotiable or something was off. You see it's tired.
Yep, that's why I was telling you on our previous episode. I'm doing arranged marriage at this point. It's not cultural for me, so I don't want to.
I'm getting more with the community.
Yeah, I don't want to step on toes. It's not for cultural reasons. It's just I think my parents can make a good choice, and so. Yeah. I'm just going to let them line up some candidates.
And not right now, but later. You know what I mean? Like the 30. Like when you give them a date, and they'll just work towards that date. So you got to rush because I'm not trying to do any of that's like 35. So you got to get 10 plus years to work it out. So it's kind of an ongoing project. Like those constructions you see in the street that start but never get finished.
Yeah.
It's going to be something like that.
Yeah. And I do want to acknowledge that I've met some cool people, out there.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to them. Like, whether things worked out or not, I did meet some cool people. So I don't want to, and I'm still talking to some cool people, so I don't want it to seem like it's hopeless out there. But overall, just speaking overall, the game is very ghetto. And I'm tired.
My thing has always been, and I think, because it's really hard to find someone you're compatible with because everyone has a different walk of life, different story,
but also
different.
And I have no idea what I'm talking about because I wasn't alive back then. But I feel like back then, I don't know exactly what I mean by back then. But back then in the good old days, it just seemed like things weren't as busy. It seems like you had a job, regular 9 to 5, come home. And I'm not knocking entrepreneurship or working hard, but it just seems like in this society, you have no downtime for yourself, and that's okay, right? Like everyone just accepts that it's fine that I just work all day and that's it.
With no actual purpose. Right.
Or like I go to school all day and that's it. And it's like so busy. You know what I'm saying? Like we just live in a society of like, we don't have breaks anymore. Like back in the day, they used to come home for lunch. Literally like the traditional model, it would be like, the mom stays at home, right? And so she'll like, the dad will be out working and he'll like come home and she'll like make lunch so they can like eat together before he goes back to work for the rest of the workday. Most people nowadays don't even get a lunch.
Here's the thing.
They eat on the go, or they're still working while eating, or like, oh, I'm gonna try to grab a energy drink or something from the vending machine. And for students, it's the same thing. Like I'm a student, it's the same thing. It's like we don't have any free time, and that's just acceptable in society today. Yeah. So how are you supposed to find time to actually date nowadays, you know what I mean? It's harder.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is engineering. I don't want to go too like mega or meta on this, but I was watching one video. One guy was talking about we really have the jobs we have and all this for no reason. We've innovated enough to where people actually don't have to work with the machines we have, the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, we can completely make every cashier checkout register line in most stores self checkout, and just like you said, put a monitor there and a tech guy in case something goes wrong. So those people who are working those jobs don't need to work necessarily. I know people have to have a purpose and work, but we've done enough in society to not have to. We're almost overly innovating at this point.
We are.
And so, like you said, working with what purpose to no end, and then at the cost of what? Life, your life, your family, spending time with friends, or developing relationships between family and friends and connections and going on trips and experiences. And I think this dating game and marriage and all that is taking a back seat and almost being sacrificed in place of this over innovation. You know what I mean? People working. You always got to work and do this and do that and stay busy. And for what? What's the purpose, really?
Yeah, no, and that is a huge thing. And what was I going to say?
No, I was wrapping up what you said because like dating life is hard and time and it's like you're right. It's like that with, well, at least I guess in America speaking, it's like that for most Americans.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Yes, I agree with that, and I think it does make dating hard, and it makes even sustaining a relationship hard. But what I was going to ask you was, do you think it's worse in bigger cities? Like, I just heard a lot of my friends complain that dating in LA is terrible.
Yeah.
Because, and not saying it's only men, but just because, you know, my friends who I'm referring to date men, it's like they're inconsistent. It's like it seems like, oh, this is a cool guy, I met someone cool, you know, like no complaints, but then it's just inconsistent. You know what I mean? Or like you pop up 3 months later and it's like, why did you think I was going to wait 3 months and not hear from you and that we would continue? You know what I mean? Like, so I just heard that it's very inconsistent. And do you think it's because LA is such like LA is like a prime example of what we're talking about. That type of city where everybody, moving fast, moving all the time, no rest, and the culture, never sleeps.
The culture is vain.
Everybody's hyped up on coffee.
A lot of vain people come here for vain reasons. It's not like a most wholesome town that really stresses values. It's not pretty hedonistic. A lot of druggies, a lot of selfish people, a lot of vain people out for their own purposes, a lot of fake alliances and friendships, you know, for the sake of growth and making money and connections. So when you really lay all that out, it's like, well, no wonder why you can't date. You can barely have friends.
Yeah.
Everyone's just out for each other's throat in the most business fashion. Everything's a business.
No, that is true.
Everything's a brand. You're dating this person for a brand or shaking hands with him and her for a brand. Oh, we're going to ditch my hangout or our meetup or our brunch. Oh, because your friend knows this person. Got to build the brand. So being seen with this person who I don't really actually like but helps my brand is better than meeting with a friend and rekindling that connection and establishing.
I do like.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And to that, I want to say, first of all, it's not the natives because LA natives were all cool. So shout out to us. We just be minding our business.
LA natives we were out of here.
We just be minding our own business.
I don't even hear. Think about this. I don't know if you know this, but most people I talk to from LA are not from LA. Yeah. Most people I talk to are from anywhere else. I'm like, man, I guess all the LA natives are moving to
we're gone.
Texas.
We're moving back to where you came from.
The South, exactly. We're swapping places. Seattle, Arizona.
I think I'll be out here for Vegas. A while. I like it here though. Like I don't like LA proper. Yeah, I just mean like I think I'll stay for a minute and see.
These earthquakes are tripping lately, huh?
Well, see, I wasn't over here when that happened.
But right here on the fault line, so I'm about to go ahead and slide.
I like it. I just don't like LA proper because it's so busy and it's too much going on. But I like living in the outskirts of LA. No. Sandy Shores.
Sandy Shores. That's where I would want to be.
No, but I like the not the far outskirts like that, with the immediate outskirts, the suburbs. I feel like I could live there because it's like I still have access.
More like South Bay, more like
even a little northern, Pasadena, Ontario.
Yep.
Chino
what do you call that?
Temecula even. I would move south, somewhere southern toward Temecula, but
kind of that Riverside type area.
Yeah. What do I call that area? You mean like the Ontario?
What is that called? Because you have South Bay, but what is that? Far.
I just be
east?
Like east on the 60.
Exactly, the 60 over there, over near that area.
Over in there.
The 60 in them.
Right, but
And then what's the north one again? The North Freeway, the 101, is it? Or is it the 5?
No, they both go actually. The 101 goes north on the coast. The 5 goes north, more like inland.
Inland. So the 101 and 5.
Yeah.
That's also north. So the 101 in them. Or the 5 in them over there.
Now we're heading toward the Bay Area. So
the Bay Area.
It's a whole different situation up there. But
exactly. Probably just as bad to keep it a buck.
It's just as bad. Okay, I can speak for San Francisco. San Francisco is just as bad because I live there, and it's like LA on steroids because San Francisco is 7 by 7. I don't know if you know that. 7 miles by 7 miles. That's how big the city is.
Yeah.
And there's millions.
So it's 40. Wait.
Of people there.
7 by 7. I was gonna square that for say 49.
There's millions of people there, versus like across the bridge, more so like Oakland and stuff like that. It's more chill to me. It's more chill than LA and San Francisco.
San Diego actually messed with too. San Diego's like a chill younger brother.
I highly mess with San Diego, but there's too many. I don't agree with the politics of San Diego. And I don't want to be around people who, and your politics is one thing, right? That's whatever. That's like debatable. Personal. That's personal, right? But when your politics lean toward hatred, that's a bit much for me.
I didn't even really realize that a couple times when it was chill, because I thought about it like this. Mm-hmm. You got California. The only really 3 places that matter, to be honest, are LA, San Francisco, and San Diego. I think San Diego, or I think that's like the chill youngest brother.
You know, I like it, and I don't think you see it, but I think just for me, I think I am driven a lot by my morals. So where like it's hard for me to even work with people if I think they're doing something that I morally totally disagree with.
Right.
So that said, that's how I feel about San Diego. Like it's a nice place to visit, but can I live there? You know, and I know a lot of people, what we were talking about just now, a lot of people who leave California, a lot of people are leaving to like Texas, specifically Houston. And it's a thriving city. There's a lot of Black people there. It's very diverse, you know, across all cultures. But I cannot live in Texas because it's a big racist Republican state. And it's like, it's just hard for me to morally be there and know that I'm going to vote and it's not going to count for anything anyway, because like Texas is a deep-seated, like the people in politics, it's deep-seated, like old money, you know, and I just can't, like, it doesn't sit right with me to live there.
If that's
you know
the case,
what I mean?
Might as well go to California, because I believe California is just as rotten. It's just they do it with a smile.
Well, see,
because people don't Texas, at least for me in my mind, they would value some type of individuality and just do your own thingness. California is just not. It's a bot town. We all got to think the same and move. Just like ants or animals, or like not animals, like computer systems. Like it just, we all got to move the same and think the same. No individual opinion. You can't do your own thing. None of that.
I think Texas is more like certain parts, right? Okay,
slave you with a smile. That's how I think California.
If we take out the race, it sounds so weird to say this, but if we put the racism to the side,
put the racism to the side
real quick, and we just look at Texas, I think I do like that because, like, yeah, it's more like, hey, individual landowners and homeowners, and I mind my business and you mind yours, and I protect my property and you protect yours.
I'm infringing on no one's rights,
right?
Property.
So it does have a more mind your own business mentality, which I do like, and I agree with you on that, and I agree that LA can be like that, and I think that's part of the reason why we started this podcast is because I think the world is so polarized, regardless of what side you stand on or sit on. It's just like
somebody's got to find the common ground.
Yeah, and no one wants to do that. And even if you don't find common ground, do I have to hate you? Right. No, I don't. But I feel like today in society, it's like if I don't agree with what you want me to agree with, oh, I'm canceled, or like it's very polarized. I agree with you.
Say this or do this or move in this fashion, or like I can I can respect something without having to support it.
Right.
And the same goes for me. You can respect my boundaries, my beliefs, whatever, is not necessarily have to support it.
Exactly.
I go to the gym. If you're like hate the gym, you can respect. Oh, you go to the gym and all that, but you have to support. I mean, you don't have to. I don't mind. Just don't.
Yes, and it's like we're so quick to cancel people just because I have a differing opinion. It's like you didn't even sit there and try to understand what they were saying, and even more than that, like you probably didn't even understand you.
Yeah.
So what am I trying to say? I'm getting upset. So, but
triggered.
it's one thing where it's like you didn't even try to understand where they were coming from or try to understand their perspective.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that leads to misunderstanding. So now you're canceling them, and you didn't really understand what they were trying to say, exactly. Right? So if you disagree, that's one thing, but you didn't even really hear them out.
Yeah,
because it's like buzzwords, trigger words.
And you start pre-framing.
Yes, yes.
Like, for example, I had worked for a boss who was an atheist. Nicest guy in the world. I always say this, if we went to hell, I'd be a couple spots in front of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I believe. So I say all to say, see, people think, atheism, and automatically pre-frame this person to be a bad person when he was the most kind person, most, gracious person, giving person, loving person, nicest guy I've ever met.
Yeah.
But if you just start pre-framing people, like I said, based off factors without really getting to know them and sitting down and having a conversation and finding common ground, you get in that mindset and you guys end up being polarized for no reason.
Yeah, like our government's about to shut down right now because people
again
can't agree. It's literally divided along party lines instead of people just doing their job and realizing, hey, you know what? We're going to have to compromise on both sides. No one's going to get exactly what they want here. Right. And that's for the betterment of the government. Now, if we're talking about obviously negative things like laws against, like racism or laws that are just things like, where things is just very obvious, we all should be on the same side of that. That is a different conversation. But what I'm talking about, is they're up there arguing about how to spend money, right? Like they're trying to pass the budget and it's just like, you're not going to get everything you want from either side. You know what I mean? You're going to have to compromise.
Give it to us anyway.
Yeah, and I think I just have a heart of understanding, I think, because I think about, I tend to lean more, this is not even a political podcast, but it's whatever. I tend to lean more left, just because I'm very big on a lot of the social justice that the left stands for. I really align with, and so I'm just a big lover of people, and I just like people to have their freedoms, and so I tend to lean more left. But I can understand why it would be hard for people who make a living off of like the fossil fuels and things like that. Like if that's what they do to feed their family, I could see how it would be hard for them if the government's just like, oh, that's illegal now. We're gonna not do that. Like I understand the importance of climate change and I believe in it, but it's easy for us to say because we have these everyday, cushy office jobs. We're not out there, doing the hard work in the field to feed our family. And so when you pass laws like that, that's going to affect someone's family. And so I can understand why, hey, that might be something we want to do gradually instead of just snapping our fingers, that's illegal. Right. Because that's going to affect somebody's family and their children. But you see what I'm saying? Everything's so polarized that you don't sit there to think about the individual. It's just strictly divided along party lines, and it just sucks because we're not thinking as human beings. We're thinking as parties.
And we're not thinking how to work together, is how to get mine. I think this mindset is directly affecting everyday men to women, or everyday relationships, between people, in a romantic sense. So you think about, since I'm a man, interact with women. So it's like, in my mind, if I'm out for my own purposes and she's out for hers, we can never agree. Mm-hmm. Even if we're married or in a relationship or anything, whatever the context is that we're, involved, it's like, well, there's got to be some type of common ground. People call it compromise, and people put not a lot of negative connotation on compromise, like, oh, someone's got to lose out. But I think it's all about finding the common ground, and that's the true point of it all.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, well, I got to lose something. Both people have to sacrifice something.
Right. Both people are going to lose in some way.
And in life, you have to sacrifice. Like, for example, if you're going to be a business owner, where you got to sacrifice stability, for your, business or your goal. Yeah. If you're doing 9 to 5, you sacrifice, a little bit of freedom and autonomy for stability. So you're always going to sacrifice, and everything's hard. Same thing with relationship. And people don't realize that. You got to sacrifice.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. That's interesting. I want to ask this. I feel like a lot of people struggle with this area. And it's all like, it's always, am I getting everything I need? Am I getting everything I need? Not thinking about, this is a we situation now. If you enter a relationship, this is a we situation. I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. And they aren't prepared to make sacrifices. But everybody wants a relationship, Do you really?
Ask you this.
Or do you just want a dog?
Especially from a woman's point of view. Because I sometimes believe that in certain situations, it's women who tend to be more selfish, and I'll tell you why.
More what?
More selfish or self-centered. Not like in a crucial way, but just in general. And I'll tell you why. With this example, and I'll probably give them another. But when the man and the woman go on a date, and they come back and they talk to their friends and family, what does the man say, or what's the man's conversation like? Oh, so what you do for her? Would you guys go? Would what jokes did you sell her? What'd you do for her? Is the conversation. How did she feel? Is the conversation. Did she like it? When the women go back and talk, again, in my mind, in my perspective, it's not about how did he feel. It's how did you feel? What did he do for you? Where did he take you? What did he buy you? You know what I mean? What did he say to you? How did you feel? Not focus on the man at all. And so when you walk in a relationship, in my mind, the premise that you guys had on the first date becomes a premise that solidifies itself within a relationship.
I agree. Oh, were you done?
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I want to push back a little bit because I believe there's a reason why. I think the reason why is because previously, let's say, I don't know, let's just say the 60s or something. I don't know. That wasn't the conversation among women. The conversation was, oh, like, so did he like you? Like, how do you feel like it's going? Because the pressure was on women, like, you need to find a husband. You need to get married. You need to settle down. And it was always what the man wanted, like, oh, like, you want a husband, you're getting up in age, you need to learn how to cook, you need to learn how to sew, do all this. Like, oh, you're concerned about your career. When are you going to settle down? When are you going to, men don't wait long, and stuff like that, right? Like, aren't you going to give this man some children? It was always that. So I think nowadays the narrative has shifted a little bit to say, like, hey, as a woman, what do I want? And I think women in general, like we tend to be the one that makes the sacrifices all the time in relationships traditionally, right? Historically. And so even I find myself sometimes being like that in relationships because women are just taught to be submissive, to be passive, to be the pleaser, people pleasers, And so I feel like that sometimes even gets to me where it's like I end up putting myself last, and I've been in situations where I did that. And then I woke up one day and was like, oh my God, I'm not happy, And so I feel like that is true. What you said is true, but it's only a pushback from how it traditionally used to be. So now it's like, hey, you know what, as a woman, I know it'll be easy for me to get caught up in this man and everything about him and in this relationship or whatever, but I need to take a step back and think about, hey, am I getting what I want here? Am I happy? Or do I just like him? You know what I mean?
Interesting. I just thought about this because I can push back in and say, I disagree. Because, back in the day, if I'm countering, a man it was dependent on him to bring in all the money, work countless hours. It's not just for his wife to either, divorce him and take half or sleep with him or sleep with another person or whatever. And so this man did all this hours providing for this whole woman's life and his family and gave his life to doing so just for it to go wrong. So, I feel like we can now debate and disagree all day, but I feel like now I'm coming to the conclusion of both have risks, right? And now, because I'm all about leveling the playing field. I'm not about playing the violin about, well, women have it so bad or women have it so bad. I want to highlight that about with men because people don't speak on that. But again, I truly believe the playing field is equal as far as sacrifice and risk. But I want to say was this. It's interesting we talk about this now. It's almost like I realized something when you're speaking. It's not the humans that are flawed. It's the premise of the relationship.
Yeah.
And the context of it. And how the individual goes in. We're talking about marriage the other day. And the problem with marriage is not the humans that aren't working it out. It's the agreement they're getting into. It may not work for them or may not fit for them. They should create their own agreement based off them. And I feel like with us following these rules of society as far as relationships and marriages go, we end up making these sacrifices and end up being unhappy. Why? We don't even know, what we do know is we're following this premise that may not work for us, but we don't think about, does it work for us? Should we try to do something else? For example, you would think that, the woman has to cook. Not really, but it's kind of a thing that's kind of expected or at least promoted. Well, what if the guy actually enjoys cooking? Or, he's a chef and that's his passion and he doesn't mind it. Well, we can just switch the narrative. The woman doesn't have to actually cook.
Right.
If she doesn't want
to. If that works for us, right.
If that works. But if you're trying to fit into this mold of, the woman has to do XYZ things, the man has to do XYZ things, you guys are both putting yourselves in places where you're not happy. So what you should do is, realize it's not us that's wrong, or maybe we do work well together, but this premise we're squeezing into doesn't work for who we are. And we should find something that works for who we are. And I just realized all that when we were talking, where, dang, women have their grievances that are legitimate, and men do too. It's not to fight or debate each other on who has it bad, but try to create something good amongst each other, which I feel like people aren't really doing. Like we mentioned in this podcast, everyone's so polarized, everyone's disagreeing, trying to get theirs, but no one's really trying to come up with solutions as to how to work together and create a world that fits them, or create a relationship that fits them.
Yeah, no, this is so true. I think there is a constant narrative between men and women where we're constantly invalidating each other. And if you even think about how relationships end and when people break up, it's always like there's always he said and then she said and then the truth, right? So that's a figure of speech, but essentially two partners in a relationship, there's always one person's point of view of how it went, how it ended, and then there's another person's point of view of how it went and how it ended. And then there's a truth, which is actually the part that we actually will never know. And in my opinion, I do think that has held people back. We argue amongst each other. We argue amongst our friends. And men and women just cannot see eye to eye. And rather than do that, we need to just validate each other's experiences. We need to come together and be like, hey, you know what? You went through that and that's how you felt. And I'm sorry for that. And I acknowledge it. And on the flip side, how can I have you not go through that again? If I'm going to be your partner, how can I help you, to feel more secure, based on the unfortunate things you went through, and it's never that conversation. It's always, like you said, everyone out for self. Right. But another thing I wanted to acknowledge is just, I think the narrative always switches as far as society is concerned. Because, I was sitting here talking about like the 50s or something like that. And you were like, oh, well, I just feel like the men's perspective is not always heard or is not always talked to, right? Talked about. And so I think I just came to the conclusion. I really just think that the narrative, it depends on what the current narrative is, right? Mm-hmm. I think these struggles always exist. Like you said, I think everyone on equal level experiences struggles. But I think whatever society says is what's the common thing, right? Mm-hmm. So back then, like I said, there's a lot of oppression, and the focus wasn't on women. Nowadays, the focus is on women. Like the feminist movement has returned and taken kind of highlighted. Yeah, it's been highlighted, right? And so, yeah, you don't hear a lot about men's experiences anymore. And God forbid if you mention, your experience as a man, misogyny, like, why are you trying to make it about you, right? So I think that is the case now. Like that there's more highlight on women, and I don't think it's a bad thing. But I just think that we have to be mindful and we have to always validate each other, Yeah,
I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I feel like now there's money to be made in division. Mm-hmm. Because it seems like, well, yeah, while we're focusing on women at this point in time, mm-hmm. the male suicide rates are, rising and are higher than women's. That's significant, but we're not going to really. That's something that's talked about or promoted. So I feel like there's just money or some type of benefit to be made in division. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is like, sadly, that's why it has to be promoted so much. Yeah. So I'm like, hopefully that can change, but if not, I feel like as an individual, you really have to make a conscious effort to try to alter your mindset and kind of unlearn a couple of things that you've, been taught or that you've seen, and try to relearn healthier habits and mindsets that mm-hmm. promote positive relationships, whether it's romantic or otherwise, to try to come together, not always disagree, and not always be selfish or out for your own gain at someone else's expense. Like you said, the LA mindset. Yeah. It should be more, not to be like so kumbaya with it, but it really is how we grow as a community and continue to survive and thrive.
Yeah, because, oh my God, I fought, like something I fought with in, relationships or even meeting people is like, but like I have such a big heart, and I think I love, and I just am naturally a person who wants to, I like to give in relationships. I like to have healthy relationships, like that's something I strive for. But then the other part of me, which is something that, again, is like something I have to unlearn is, yeah, well, girl, you need to look out for you, like blah, blah, blah. And you need to make sure you're getting what you need before you invest in him. And so then I kind of like pull back, right? And I'm like, okay, I got to like make sure I'm getting what I need, And then I'm like, oh, but I want to do this for this person. Or I thought about them today, so I want to do this. And then I want to do it, but then I'm like, no, you're doing too much. Like,
that second mind. And we all have that, though. I thought guys are the same thing.
And it's torture. It's torturous. Like, I'm torturing myself because I'm trying to not be who I really am.
Exactly.
Because I don't trust that, am I getting mine? Right? I don't trust that the person is doing that for me.
When guys said, maybe I want to compliment her or be more expressive to her. Oh, no, she can see as corny or soft. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that, again, it's so funny that now we're having this conversation, how clear we can see both sides. And I think we should have more conversations like that.
We definitely got to continue this one, though. How you act when you're dating. How you... Are you doing too much? Are you doing too little?
This has been Black Scott.
Love Jade.
And we have been She Said, He Said.
Don't forget to subscribe and share, y'all.
All right, that's been our time.
Peace.